Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And on today's episode, we are continuing the saga of shitting on the British Museum with this wonderful article that asks how many artifacts in the British Museum are actually British? And the answer might surprise you.
Yeah. Yep. So the British Museum is under a lot of fire right now because, well, the Elgin Marbles are an ongoing debate over whether they should be repatriated, how they should be repatriated, what compensation does the British Museum deserve for them. And this has sparked a inquest into, well, what exactly is in the British Museum? Because there's a joke that says if you took everything that wasn't British out of the British Museum, it would be empty. And turns out that's not entirely true.
I think a lot of it is partially saving face for the British Museum, which hasn't had the best track record in the past few years. Mainly being they lost over 1,000 artifacts because of a curator stealing from them, and also leaky facilities and roofs. But the debate marches on, and yeah, they do have a majority of British artifacts because what does happen is you get excavations that happen nearby the institution, and people will try and donate them, or the museum may even accession them from nearby sources because it's easier because localized history often does sell better than foreign history. But the Elgin Marbles remains a point of hot debate where the new Great British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has been talking with the Greek, I think it's also Prime Minister Kyriakos
Yeah,
Mitsotakis.
yeah, they're both prime ministers. That is their official title.
And they were
But yeah,
talking about how the British counterpart may no longer block the return of the marbles. However, England and the British Museum have very staunchly said that they will never go anywhere.
yeah. Now with this article, it's a bit focused on the numbers. So remember that the British Museum has a collection of over 2 million pieces. It has a display capacity of 80,000. And of those 2 million pieces and 80,000 slots available to display, the Brit the Brits have some 650,000 artifacts from England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, the parts of Britain that make up Great Britain. And that is the single largest place, or sorry, the single largest number for a given place in the British Museum. So the number one category of things in British Museum is British, but it's barely a quarter of the total artifacts they have.
The fact that it is about 20% of their total collection is astonishing more than anything.
Yeah,
Because it just shows how much of it has truly been looted. And the
yeah,
fact that they don't really even mention it, but they really should, is just how how much of that is from other nearby nations like Italy is almost 150,000, France is 82,000, Turkey 75,000, Greece 67,000, or 65,000, Germany 67,000. Like these are substantial portions that are still a massive component of the museum's collection.
yeah, yeah. They have artifacts from 51 other countries outside of the United Kingdom.
And some
Yeah,
of their other things are
and
like the Rosetta Stone that they have on display.
yep. Oh yeah, they have the Rosetta Stone. And that's one of the other big points this article makes is aside from these numbers, which you can frame to make it look like, hey, the British Museum is actually really good. The number one source of artifacts is the British, or they're really bad because it's maybe 25% of the total. The other thing they point out is that all the headliners,
It just causes a lot of
they
confusion
are
and a
Greek.
lot.
They
Oh,
are from all these other nations.
yeah.
Oh no, sorry.
It's
It,
incredible. And then what a lot of these collections came from were areas and locations that the British Army had plundered, had robbed,
Mhm.
had gone through. I mean, so many of their African goods were just plundered from the locations, and they even have note of the theft and controversy that took place here at the
yeah,
bottom of
definitely,
the earth,
definitely.
which includes some 2,000 items, including jewelry and precious stones that were stolen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like speaking of like the thing with the Rosetta Stone, the British get like extra moral low ground on that one because they stole it as a war trophy from Napoleon, who had looted it from Egypt.
There's just so much to unpack with that one.
That that's just like somehow you've made it worse.
But the biggest issue with this stems
It is
from
terrible. Like, yeah,
oh,
they've got statues from the mausoleum. Sorry, you weren't talking there, so I just figured it out. So they got statues from the mausoleum of Halicarnassos, which is in Turkey now, and that was one of the ancient wonders of the world. They did not get that legitimately. I can almost guarantee it.
it just they might have a large number of British artifacts, but the majority of their big items, their big contenders were looted from massive places throughout history, and it's incredible because even then the British Museum will never repatriate anything, and instead what they do is they set up long-term loan arrangements with certain institutions if it really becomes a contentious item.
Yeah. And speaking of contentious items, there was something in this article that I didn't even know about, but I'm not surprised by being in the British Museum. And that is the Magdala collection from Ethiopia, which
Yep.
contains the sacred altar tablets of the Ethiopians. As in, you are holding another country's religion hostage because you like to look at it.
And the British Museum for the longest time held themselves on a moral high ground of, well, if we don't protect it, nobody will. We are keeping it safe. And that's the same argument that they've used for the Elgin marbles, especially as the Parthenon did suffer some damages during conflicts that the Ottomans were a part of, but regardless, it doesn't mean you get to hijack a culture's culture for
Yeah.
your own personal pleasure either.
And honestly, that argument hasn't held water for years because the Parthenon Museum in Athens has been completed for years now. It is a much more modern, much more state of the art facility than the British Museum will ever be. And the Brits refuse to repatriate to it because those darn Greeks, they wouldn't know how to take
They wouldn't know how to take care of it whatsoever.
care of a statue. It's not like they have that is the guiding philosophy. Yeah. It's just such a terrible guiding philosophy. And, they deserve to be getting called out and just, you can try to hide behind some of the numbers, but in the end, you know, 650,000 out of 2 million and counting. Because guess what? That's just the 2 million they've cataloged. They don't know how much more they have in their basement.
Yeah,
It
and
could be any.
I think that's a great point for us to wrap up on today's episode because, yeah, the British Museum, they like to try and exonerate themselves, but in reality, they continue the same problematic nonsense. And, yeah, if you guys enjoyed, let us know what you think down below, and we'll see you in the next one.